Hi guys, thanks for watching. I'm ItAHadley. In this video, I'm going to be talking about reality. It's probably a concept you're already somewhat familiar with because, you live inside of it. And probably hear remarks made about it all the time. One of my least favorite things or sentences that I hear said is,
"Welcome to reality."
And it's almost always said in some negative connotation where something bad has happened to someone and they're like, what the fuck? And somebody else is like, well, welcome to reality. Reality sucks. This is what it is. Deal with it. Get over it. And that's bullshit. If I asked you to describe reality to me, how might you do it? Would you describe your role in life, your role as a human being, your role inside of society, the earth, the dimensions within inside you live? How would you do it? Now imagine how you might describe reality versus how someone religious, say a nun, might describe reality. Now, maybe you are a nun, and now imagine how you, a nun, would describe reality versus how a punk would describe a reality, their reality. Two completely different versions of an existence that we're all maintaining cohesively together as human beings on this earth. So what is reality at its core? What is this thing that I'm talking about? If you Googled reality, it would tell you that it is the state of all things as they actually exist, which is honestly a pretty difficult, if not impossible, thing to fathom. Reality is more than you and the earth that you live in and the things that you see and know. Reality is everything in existence. That includes every planet from every other galaxy, every star, every dimension, everything that you could possibly conceive or not conceive, that's the big point here, that exists. That is reality. It's much bigger than you. It's much bigger than everything you can see. So if reality is something that we cannot fathom, how is it that we create these personal concepts of reality that we perceive and live inside of every day? I want you to imagine that all of reality is like a grid like this, a three-dimensional grid, right? And everything you have ever perceived exists inside this tiny little layer of that grid. So from the time that you were born, your brain acts as a sponge and it starts soaking in all of the stimulus from your environment, whether it's, your senses, your taste, your sight, your hearing, or the things that are grounded in your environment around you, your family, your parents, the things they say to you that make you feel your position in the world, that construct this idea of reality. And it's not just the stimulus, it's often your genetic makeup and your individual consciousness that sorts all of the stimulus you receive into this perception of what reality is around you. As you grow older, your brain continues to receive stimulus that continues to validate that idea of reality which you have formed. I am Hadley Deller, a human being on Earth. The stimulus that I receive is constantly validating those facts for me. That has created the reality that I live in. But it's important to remember that all of that stimulus that you have ever received from your entire life is still on that one tiny plane of existence, when reality as a whole is that entire three-dimensional grid, right? So what I'm getting at is that your idea of reality, my idea of reality, all of our ideas of reality are very limited to what we can perceive as human beings. Now, also imagine how differing life events can change that idea of reality within, a single individual versus another individual. Let's go back to our nun. We can view her lifetime on this grid of reality as it gets bigger and bigger throughout. She keeps receiving more and more, and her concept of reality is expanded upon. But you can go back to the very beginning of this progression and probably pinpoint not the moment, but multiple moments probably that have led to her belief in the gospel, in the Bible, which has then altered her entire view of reality. Whether that is her parents raising her to have this belief of God, or she goes to a Catholic school, or has goes to a rehabilitation center and finds God through therapy, whatever it is. There have been moments, there have been stimulus received in this nun's life that has added to her perception and concept of reality, so that she now believes something straight out of the book of Genesis, that God created earth in 7 days, and that is our existence, that we are divine creatures meant to look over everything else. But you could also take someone who's been living in the jungle their entire life, untouched by the rest of humanity. Theoretically, of course, we don't, they're the very few, minute amount of people that actually are in those situations we try not to make contact with. But if we were able to investigate their principle of life, it most likely would be around something, relating to nature, and that we are all a piece of this cohesive unit. We come from nature, go back to nature, something like that, as many native tribes do. So there are these two completely different concepts of reality, which are extremely valid and extremely real to each of those individuals, while perhaps not entirely realistic to the entire idea of reality, which is what we are all doing. Every one of us has an opinion or a perspective on what reality is that is not entirely accurate. So what I'm trying to get at is that reality really is dependent on perspective and an individual's life experiences, consciousness, all of those things to form a recreation of what real reality is. Some of you might be saying, okay, Hadley, cool. No matter how we view things, there is a finite way that things actually exist. And you're right by that. But we will never be able to accurately, at least not in this form that we have right now, view those things 100% accurately. Take this rock, for example. This rock exists in reality. I can see it very clearly. This is what this rock looks like to me. We can all see it. It's actually made of clay. It's pretty cool, very soft. This exists in my reality. But let's say that I am the last living anything, any conscious being. As soon as I die, does this rock still look like this rock? Well, no. While it still exists, its atom is still there, its structure is still there, it's no longer being perceived by something with eyes like myself, whose brain is understanding that this is what this rock looks like. This is what reality looks like for me, but real reality does not look like this. This is my perception of this rock. This rock doesn't look like anything, because as soon as something is viewing and looking at it, then it becomes the perception. The real thing is unattainable. Also, imagine how a little bug might see this rock. I see this rock as pretty small. I could chuck it. It's about the size of my hand. But if you were an ant and you were climbing on this thing would be a goddamn sand dune to you. This would be massive. And if I weren't here to witness this rock, the only perception of this rock that were happening were that ant's perception, this thing wouldn't look like this. This thing would look like whatever the fuck it looks like from the ant's perception. It is all perception based. It is all based on the individual creating the concept of reality inside their mind. So at this point, you're probably wondering, why does this even matter? It's what I see. It's what I see. Well, who the fuck cares if it's not what's actually out there? Well, I'm not trying to throw you guys into the sense of absolute delirium falling down the goddamn rabbit hole. What I'm trying to do is set up this framework of thought that allows you to recognize that the things that you perceive, feel, see, know are not perhaps as concrete as you think they are, that life can be a lot looser, a lot more free, and a lot more up to your individual mind if you allow and really spend a lot of time working on that ability to perceive as you intend to perceive, not as you've been trained to perceive. Life becomes a lot more fun that way. How I view my own reality, I'm constantly going back and forth between those two concepts. The real reality is reality actually exists, that concept of that rock without me looking at it, that there's so much more beyond what I can comprehend and fathom. And two, that this concept of personal reality I have is a bit of a fable. It's completely self-created, but that my goal should be to align this idea of my self-reality as closely to this unfathomable concept of real reality as I can. And while that sounds kind of trippy, it's almost like removing all of the hard nails from the framework that keep you in place. I remember one time I was having this discussion with this Christian lady at a bookshop about reality and how I could possibly have this belief that doesn't have any concretion, and she told me it's like nailing Jello to a wall. And I was like, first off, of course a Christian has to make the nailing analogies, but second off, it kind of is like nailing Jello to a wall, and who the hell cares? The Jello doesn't have to stay up there. You're the only one saying it has to stay on the wall. Let the Jello fall. Let the Jello splat on the floor. It's still okay. It's fucking Jello. Your argument don't make any sense. Live freely. Don't let yourself live this structured life where you feel like you're only moving inside the confines of what you're allowed to. You're allowed to do anything you want to. There are consequences, yes, but reality is yours for the making, yours for the creation. Do anything you want with it. Get creative. In upcoming videos, I'm going to be talking about other concepts like this that we believe are so concrete, but really when it comes down to it, when we investigate these things, they're not concrete at all. They're really just this illusion that we have created of what reality is. I'm going to be talking about things like knowledge and truth. What makes you know something versus believing something, and if there's anything at all that actually makes you know something. What is truth? What is this answer that we're constantly searching for? All these good things coming in up and coming videos. I hope this gave you guys something just interesting to think about. That's all I'm ever trying to do, is just give you something to toy with in your free time. Get out of your phones, get out of the, reality that is constantly infiltrating our minds. Get into your own mind, think about these things. If you guys like this video, please like it, subscribe. It really means a lot to me and helps to spread these ideas far and wide and maybe bring a better idea of unity and cohesion to all of us as human beings, because that's what we really need right now. And I'm asking all of you to help me achieve that goal by going out and acting and thinking on these thoughts, and also spreading the love, spreading the knowledge, spreading the curiosity to other people. That's the whole goal, guys. Until next time, take it easy, guys.